Well, good morning. Glad to have you with us today. If it's your first time with us, we're glad you're here. Welcome. You are actually picking us up in the middle of a message series. We do a lot of message series around here, and each week sort of builds on the other one. So if you missed the last two, I'd invite you to go online and catch up. But today we're going to go back to the thing that we've been looking at, this idea of the stuff that God uses to grow my faith and your faith and all of our faith. And the concept that we've talked about, the undergirding idea behind this whole series is this, that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And the whole goal is to get us to look at some stuff in our lives in a little bit different way and to see how God uses those things for our growth. And so often when we talk about growth, especially spiritual and faith growth, we think about the idea of praying or reading the Bible or ministering, serving somebody, and those are all important and good, but I think in the process sometimes we forget some of the other things that God puts in our lives. And so today, the thing I want us to make sure we understand is simply this, that the quality of your life is impacted by the people in your life. To a much greater degree than you understand, to a greater degree that you believe, probably even to a greater degree than you want to believe. Because I'm guessing for you is the same as for me, and that is that a lot of the things I regret in life are around the idea of relationships and the choices and the groups that were around me at the time and what they encouraged me to do, the dares that happened, everybody else is doing it, kind of go along thing, and how that really affected the quality of our life. And there's probably some quotes, there's a couple of quotes that you've heard about this before. This one, you can't soar with eagles if you hang around with turkeys, right? Some of you, that's all you need to hear today. Be reminded of that, right? There's another one I love from Maya Angelou. She says that when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. In fact, she will actually add there, the first time. But isn't it weird how when somebody shows us who they are, we don't really want to believe it because they're our friend? I mean, I'm guessing you have friends like I do. All of us have friends that that name comes up, somebody says, oh, so-and-so did this, she said that, and we all say to ourselves, oh, that's just fill in the name, right? We kind of cut them up slack because, well, that's just them. They're always that way, but they're my friend, and so because they're my friend, and sometimes that process of friends, we forget of how impactful they have. And for some of us, we're old enough to recognize that. For some of us, we're still in that stage. We're trying to figure that all out. Some of you are young enough that friends are such an important and vital part of your life. That you have friends right now that you think are going to be lifelong friends. If you're a teenager and middle school, you may believe that, right? You have good friends. They're going to be our friends for the rest of my life. We're going to be best buds for the rest of my life. How many of you still have a best friend from elementary school? Raise your hand. I want to see how many it's from. We have quite a few. Look at that. Good for you. Also, I want you to notice that the majority of hands were not raised at that moment. Because friends are friends in the moment. Sometimes we discover stuff about friends, and sometimes life just takes us in different courses. Sometimes we outgrow our friends. Sometimes they outgrow us. But here's the thing I don't want us to miss. That there is a spiritual component to relationships, even if you're not. So you may be here today because, you're starting to date somebody, and this is where they go to church, and so you're here because they're here, and you like them, and you're not sure about us, but you like them, right? Some of you, it's the start of summer, so maybe you're home from college, or you've come to visit your folks or some relatives, and they're here today, so you're here today. Some of you aren't sure about where you stand in this whole faith idea. Some of you are starting it. Some of you are well along it. But oftentimes we forget that there's this spiritual component. It doesn't matter if you're spiritual or not, because you know this is true. You know this is innately true. That your friends affect you in a way that nobody else can. And there's a spiritualness about that. In fact, we're going to go look back today at some famous statements from this guy that in his day was considered the wisest man of his time. And we're going to look at a section of the Bible that's called Proverbs. And Proverbs are not promises. They're simply observations by this wise man. As he looks at life and he says, this is what I've observed. Through all my study, all my looking at life, understand how life works, these are some of my conclusions. But before we get there, I want to invite you to bow your heads and let's pray one more time together, okay? Lord, for some of us, today will be a painful day. Because for some of us, we'll have to face some of the choices that we've made in our lives. Some of the things that we've allowed. Some of the things that we've encouraged. For some of us, it will be painful because of the friends that we have moved away from, whether physically or just relationally. And while it was the right thing to do, the right thing always doesn't feel good. The right thing isn't always the easiest thing to take place. But today we need to stop and look at this idea of friends. Because each of us have had somebody who has been a friend that has encouraged us, that has helped us. Helped us in our faith journey, helped us in our life. And each of us had friends who have let us down at the biggest moments of our lives. And so today I just pray that somehow through this ancient wisdom that you can give us each some personal clarity on the importance of friends and how they really do impact the quality of our lives. So we give you this time and the space now to use this old stuff for something new and good in your name. Amen. If you want to follow along, like I said, we're going to be over in the book of Proverbs, that section of the Bible in the Old Testament called Proverbs. We're going to bounce through a number of different ones, so you can just kind of keep along, watch there. First one, Proverbs 18:24, simply says this: some friends may ruin you, but a real friend will be more loyal, that'll cling closer than a brother. This was Solomon's observation. He says, I've had some friends that have ruined you, and I'm guessing you've had some friends ruin you as well, right? Maybe you entered into one of those business arrangements with them, and now you look back and you wish you had never gotten to that with that friend, right? Maybe they were just a friend, and you thought that's all they were, but they thought they were more than that, and it got complicated, and it got crazy, and it ended up in not a really good place. But the thing I want to look at first of all is that first part, that some friends may ruin you. How many of you would say that you had some friends at some point in your life that were not so good for you? Raise them proud. Now, hopefully they're in the past, right? Raise them proud if they're in the past, right? But not so much in the past. Just kind of go like that for me, all right? Let's try that one more time. Yeah, everybody puts their hands way up, right? I don't want that other part there. Down is a lot easier than up. That's one of my big points today, so I hope you have a little bit of a reaction to it, all right? But think about it. Down is a lot easier than up, right? I mean, that's part of this whole idea of gravity. We get pulled back down, and the reality is we sometimes have people around us that like to pull us back down. Have you noticed that? You go celebrate something good's happened, you share that with them, and there's just always somebody in your group of friends that is the one that likes to burst the bubble, right? That has to one-up you with a story, whether it's even true or just made-believe from their life about, how it worked for them. And this is important to know, that down is a lot easier than up because it tells us that's sort of a default of how life works. And that's why it's so important to recognize who we allow to be in that circle of our friends. Jordan B. Peterson, if you haven't heard this name, you will be hearing this name. He's sort of broken onto the bestseller list, and he's considered glowing things. He's maybe the greatest thinker of our lifetime is one of the bylines that goes with the book he has out right now. But I think he captures a great picture of how life works when he writes these words. Human beings have a great capacity for wrongdoing. We've all experienced that, right? But we have a great capacity for wrongdoing. We can do and make things worse voluntarily with full knowledge of what we are doing, as well as accidentally and carelessly, and in a manner that is willfully blind. And it's not just our friends that do it, we do it as well, right? Sometimes willingly. Other times, it just sort of happens carelessly. Another observation by Solomon. A useless, that is a perverse person, and the perverse there is not kind of really perverted perverse. It's this idea of somebody who is just hard to get along with, sort of always has an antagonistic point of view. That kind of person causes trouble and conflicts, and a gossip ruins close friendships. How many of you remember those great middle school years or elementary school years when you thought somebody was your bestie, and then somebody came and told you a story that they said something about you that wasn't so bestie? And you got all mad and upset because how could they think that? I thought they were my bestie, right? In fact, the language here, when it says gossip, is the little language says whisperer, which is how gossips typically work, isn't it? Hey, Chip, hey, come here. Let me tell you something nobody else knows, right? But don't tell anybody else, right? Because I wasn't supposed to tell you. But then Chip will tell somebody else, right? But don't tell anybody else, right? How many of you have ever had a relationship ruined, close friendship ruined over gossip, some story that came out, right? You know how that works. You know the pain that is part of that, right? And Solomon's observation is, listen, he considers this person that's just kind of hard to live with, a useless person, because they cause conflict. All of us probably have somebody within our sphere of friends that is sort of that guy or that girl, right? The one that's always just, nothing can ever be solved. They're always doing something to get things going, to get things riled up, to put a little controversy in there. They just seem like their whole job is to kind of stir the pot and then step back. Just enjoy what goes on from there. That's been my observation. They cause trouble, and somebody who's this whisperer, they ruin close friendship. In fact, just a few verses later, next chapter, he'll say this: whoever forgives someone's sins makes a friend, but gossiping about the sin, that is repeating a thing, breaks up friendships. And as Solomon looks at this, he says, listen, that somebody that forgives you, that you've done something to them, there's this friendship, there's this connection. If it's true and true forgiveness and this connection, it develops a friendship. But when we go repeating something over and over, it tanks friendships. You ever had a friend like that? That you did something carelessly, not intentional, but it just happened, and you feel bad about it, and you say, forgive me, I'm so sorry, and they just can't ever let it go, and they just keep telling everybody else the story, and it keeps going and going and going. It doesn't matter what you've done. Oh, wait, there's more. Because gossip feels so good when it's coming in, right? And it's about somebody else. And it feels so bad when it's coming at you, when it's about you. So often we love those stories. In fact, if you're not a Christian, you will enjoy this, because I'm going to get on us Christians for a moment. Us Christians have a great way that we have decided how to do this. Because it's good, it's clean, it's holy. I'm going to pray for them. But in order to pray for them, I must share with you what's going on in their life, because I just want you to know I'm so concerned about them. So let me tell you all the details. You will not believe this, but we have to pray for them. Right? And there's something within all of us that reminds us that down is so much easier than up. There's something that pulls us that way, because we all like to feel like we're in the power position, that we have some information, we have some stories, we have something sort of that we can get at something or do something. We forget that this whole thing about life and about faith is not about power. It's about loving each other. It's about caring for each other. Some friends, as we talked about, ruin you. But a real friend will be more loyal, that is, cling closer than a brother. And I have found this to be so true in life. I have a brother. I have an older brother. How many of you have older brothers? Anybody else with older brothers? How many of you like your older brothers? They're not watching today, so I'm the only one that's going to get in trouble with this, all right? My older brother, my only brother, he and I are very different. We are different in a whole lot of ways, and we don't have a great friendship. We don't have a great relationship. And I'm sure part of it's my fault. A lot of it's his fault. Nothing but facts today, folks, all right? But there was a period in my life that we were really good friends. And the reason we were really good friends is that we bonded over a common thing that we enjoyed, cars. So from about my senior year in high school up through probably about when I turned 20, so about 3 years, we were really good friends. We did a bunch of stuff together. We worked on cars together. We bought and sold cars. We made money. We did a bunch of stuff. And everything was really, really good. And for me, the problem was when I became a Christian, and my life took a little bit different course than everything that was involved in cars, because it wasn't just cars. The other things that go with those cars, at least in the circles I ran. A little bit of drinking, a little bit of carousing, a little bit of having a good time, and I decided that probably wasn't the trajectory of my life or where it was going. That kind of brought a thing, and I went off to college, so that broke up all of our business relationships, and it's kind of not gone great since then. But I still love my brother. And I pray every day for my brother. I pray for his salvation, and I pray for his health. He has a bad heart, and so I pray every day for him because he is literally a ticking time bomb. He actually could be dead right at this moment. I would not know. I mean, he has that kind of heart that he could go at any time. And I would do anything I could for my brother. But in my experience, I've discovered that there are people, real friends, who are closer to me than my brother. And they're closer to me because of who they've been in my life, who they've been as a real friend to my life. And there are people I would do anything for, and maybe if I got the choice between my brother and them, I would be a really hard choice, figuring out who I would do it for, simply because when you've had somebody who's been a real friend, it gives you a context to look at other friends, make some evaluations. Now, let me give you a backstory before I say this line up here, right? Sometimes when we talk about friends, I do quite a bit of premarital counseling. For some reason, people like to come see me. I don't know why. Told you before, I'm not a counselor, but I get people from other churches that will come, do all the premarital. They'll have somebody else marry them, but whatever the story is. I don't know the whole story behind it. But I will tell you one common theme that I've been finding recently is that a couple will sit there, and when we get the discussion of how friends and family are looking at this relationship, probably about 40 to 45% of the time now, I'm seeing this idea of, well, she has friends or he has friends, and there's a whole thing there, and I don't like them, and, why are they still part of your life? Well, they're my boys. I've known them since, way back in the day. They got to be here. And there's this idea of loyalty bleeds into it, and I can't give up that because I'd be being disloyal to my boys, disloyal to my girls for this. And there's a whole lot of reasons that this is. Sometimes there's some jealousy stuff that needs to be worked out. Sometimes it's not a total commitment because, hey, I got somebody that's been a long-time friend and you've been around for about a year now, and I'm hoping this works forever. But there's been some backtrack. There's some history. I'm going to stay with them. And so there's this whole thing that goes back and forth. But I've seen too many people in life who, out of this sense of loyalty, have stayed friends with people that were not good for them. Thus, loyalty is not a synonym for stupidity. But some, oh, no, they've been around. They've been there through everything. Just because somebody's been there through everything doesn't mean they've been helpful to everything. In fact, sometimes the reason they've been there for everything is this is just easy for everybody. See, you are not morally obligated to support someone who is making the world a worse place. You're not. God doesn't say you have to stay in this friendship no matter how bad it is for you because they need a friend. See, choose people who want things to be better, not worse. And being better needs to be better for you. Because sometimes we have friends around us who are, they're really good friends. We all of us, I'm so, oh yeah, I love him. He's so cute. Yeah, I love you. Something goes wrong. Oh, I know the whole time. He is bad for you, girl. I've told you, I didn't like him from the very beginning, and then you're back together. Oh, I didn't mean all that stuff. And then, oh yeah, and they're just waiting for those moments. And life is too important. Your life is too important. The quality of your life is too important to let some sort of sense of loyalty because they've been my friends for a long time. That means I have to stay in this deep, connected relationship with them. Listen, you cannot help everybody. And you know why that's true? Because you are not Jesus. Jesus can help anybody. And there are literally in this room, now I know some of your stories, there are miracles in this room today who have been helped dramatically by Jesus. Some of you were lost and gone. Some of you had not just fallen down, you had fallen down in the crevice, all the way down to the bottom, body all bangled up. It was way too far to anybody to get you, but Jesus could get you. And Jesus uses people at different times. But it's not our job to be everything to everybody. See, not everyone is a lifelong friend. And that's what Solomon's talking about as he makes these observations about life. That just because somebody's a friend doesn't mean they're that friendly to you or to the relationship. See, maybe you're associating with people who are bad for you, not because it's better for anyone, but because it's easier. I'm going to give you a second to take a picture of that because some of you need to take a picture of that, all right? Let's be honest. Sometimes we're friends with people just because it's easier. Because if I say I don't have time or we can't be friends anymore, it's going to be a thing, and I don't want a thing because we've known them forever. Our moms were best friends, and if I get them, I'm going to get a call from my mom. I'm going to get a call from my aunt because now she's mad at me. She's not my real aunt, but she's my aunt like my aunt. It's just easier. Or it's just easier that when they come around, I just say, oh, that's just like, they're just that way, and we all just kind of cover this because it's just easier. In fact, sometimes we stay in a relationship because we think we're helping them. They've been struggling for years, but I'm their one constant friend, which makes them feel good, makes me feel good, but honestly doesn't do anything for either of us. Solomon will also say the bruises of a friend can be trusted to help you. But the kisses of an enemy are dangerous. They're nothing but lies. Now I could focus on the second part, but I want to focus on the first part. This idea of a slap of a friend. You know how you know if you have somebody that's a good friend for you? They will have your back no matter what. But when it's just you two, they will call you to task. They will slap you around and beat you up figuratively, unless you need a little bit of the other reminder about how things are. And it's hard to find a friend like that. Because a lot of us are afraid to be a friend like that because when we've been a friend like that, the other person doesn't like it. They don't recognize it as being a friend. They think, oh, I thought you had my back. How could you do that? How could you say that to me? But I've had a few friends in my life who have been Solomon observation friends, who were willing to bruise me because I needed it. Who were willing to tell me, as we used to say back in college to each other, because this was kind of a guy thing, you're ugly and your mother dresses you funny, which doesn't make any sense. But sometimes you need somebody to be able to say that to you. Because if nobody else is telling you that, somebody has to. And a friend who will tell you that is also a friend that will stick with you through that. And isn't that what we're all after? These friends. Anne Lamott. I love Anne Lamott. She's got great insight to a lot of stuff. She's a little rough and raw in some places, but that just makes her a little more honest in this whole stuff. I love how she pictures this whole idea of friendship. She says, close friendships are one of life's miracles. They really are, because most people, when they do these statistics and these studies, most people can't say they have, even one, let alone a couple of really true friends. People have friends, but not those really things. Really is one of life's miracles. That a few people get to know you deeply, all your messy or shadowy stuff, along with the beauty and sweetness, and they still love you. Not only still love you, but love you more and more deeply. I would do anything for my closest friends, and they would do almost anything for me, which I love that catch. Right? Because she has good friends. She knows that they will do almost anything. Because if you have a good friend, they will not do anything for you because they are a good friend. That's right, yeah. And I love this last line. And that is about as spiritual a truth as you can get. One last statement from Solomon, another observation. He says, as iron sharpens iron, which is a weird thing, but if you've ever used a knife or any kind of blade, there's this weird idea. You take one piece of metal and you rub it against another one, and after a while, they sharpen each other. And they sharpen each other because they're hitting each other, they're moving against each other. So he's used this illustration, this iron sharpens iron. So people sharpen their friends, they improve each other. Which the question has to be, are your friends balloons or are they anchors? You have some friends that act like they're balloons, but love to be anchors. They'll lift you up just to bring you back down because there's just something fun about watching somebody go through that. Because remember, down is easier than up, right? See, friendship is a reciprocal agreement. It's got to be good both ways. And if you're in a friendship right now that is not good both ways, you are not in a friendship. You may just be needy, they just may be needy. But it may not be what you think it is. But here's the crazy thing. You are here today because of someone. There was somebody that God put in your life at some point, and that's the reason you're here today. You did not just show up, you were driving down the road, popped in here, you don't have any clue, nothing else. You did not, somebody said, some way you got here, right? Now again, you may be your first time and you're here simply because she's cute. Which I'm glad she's cute. It got you here today. We're okay with that around here, right? Yeah, thank you, Jesus, for cute girls, right? We're all good with that. But God used somebody to get you here today. And some of us have these stories that we can look back on these moments in our life and see how God used different people at different times. And it wasn't to get us from A all the way to Z. It was simply to get us from A to B and B to C. And if you were like me, C to C minus, because I didn't want to go all the way to D yet. They just moved along, right? And God puts people in our lives at the right time, but sometimes we have to figure out what kind of people they are. And that's Solomon's observation. But you're here today because of somebody. So here's my question as we wrap things up. Who are you being someone to? That's part of being a friend, is being someone to somebody. It doesn't mean, again, taking total control of their life, doesn't mean of getting everything fixed, but sometimes it's just saying the right thing at the right time, which I've discovered oftentimes happen not because you planned for it, but just happens because it happened. Some of the times when I think I've been the most poignant and clear, they've been duds. I think, man, I said the right thing. I had the right words. That was great. And talk to them later, and they went over their head. Other times I'll talk to somebody, and I'll discover I said something or did something I don't even remember. And for them, it was amazing. In fact, I had a time. I'll tell you this last story. I was working at the General Conference here a number of years ago, 20 years ago, I think it's been now. And just in the modern age of the internet and this whole, social stuff. How many remember CompuServe? Anybody old enough to remember CompuServe? Yeah, all the old people, hey, ooh, shout out, don't move because you hurt yourself. But all right, So we'd gotten this message there, and I was working with a guy, not in my office. I was in one office. He was over working for the Adventist Review, which is a magazine that our church puts out. And he's a guy I'd worked with out in Nevada, and we had done these things called camp meetings, which some Pastor Marilyn and Darnish are at today. This spiritual kind of camping thing. It's kind of weird if you're not familiar with it. But then we had a junior camp before that. And so we had camp meeting. We're getting ready for junior camp, which junior camp is just this crazy time. You get all these kids, you put them in tents, and you pray that the same amount of kids you had at the start of the week or what you have at the end of the week, right? And so we'd had this kid, and we had a couple of girls in our youth group at camp meeting, and we had a couple of guys that I knew the only reason they were there because the girls were cute. Yeah, it's been a pattern I've seen for all of our life, right? So the boys were going to stay around for junior camp, and I thought to myself, oh man, I'm going to I got to not watch the little kids, I got to watch these kids because they're going to be, hey baby, and they want to go behind the scene. No. So I grabbed one of the guys. I said, you need to come work with me. So we were getting stuff together. I don't remember anything about that conversation, other than I probably was pretty straightforward and strict because I was trying to carve the boundaries for him, right? So here it is. Like 10, 12 years later, I get this message. This guy says, are you Mike Speegle who used to be here? I said, yes. And he said, I wanted to like to talk to you sometime. So I sent him back. I said, sure. And so he sends me this email that's this whole story about how his life changed because he talked to me. To which I went and saw my buddy who we always had a good guy, bad guy kind of role in watching over the kids. He was the good guy. I always had to be the bad guy. And so I said, are you sure he's not talking to you? But no, he remembers we had this great conversation we were doing some stuff with the boats and all this stuff. And now his life turned around and changed. Now he's going in the ministry. And I thought to myself, I don't think this kid knows who I am. I think he's got the wrong guy. But it's one of those weird, and I've seen it happen over and over. The times you don't think anything's going to happen are the things that happen. And when you planned, you thought you got the right words, it doesn't always happen. And my point is simply this. If you're being someone to someone, it is not about thinking about the right things. It's just simply about God using in those moments. And lastly, I want to ask you this for your own personal sake. What's the next right step for you? What's the next right step in this whole idea of friends? Friends that'll help you in your faith journey, friends that you can help in their faith steps. What's the next right step? Not just the next step, but the right step. Because all of us need to take not just another step, but another right one. Think about that as the praise team comes out one more time. We're glad to have Sean back with us. Come on out, Sean. Sean has moved to Florida, if you haven't heard. Yeah, everybody go, oh, yeah. Well, he's back here today, and we're glad for that. Thank you, Sean.